So one of the other things we do on this channel, as I'm sure long-standing viewers will know, is we like to review comedy. I've reviewed all the major big Netflix specials, particularly like Dave Chappelle's special and the Ricky Gervais special. I'm a big fan of comedy. I've done, I wanted to be a stand-up growing up. Since my family got the first TV, and I used to sneak down in the middle of the night and watch the Just for Laughs festival. Basically, like, obviously, this comic that leapt out immediately. Well, it was two. Used to catch George Carlin, and used to like him very much. But obviously, Bill Hicks was the one. I wanted to be Bill Hicks. That was the first time I ever sort of explicitly looked at somebody else in the world and said, you know what, if I was that person, I would be more than happy. So I thought I was going to grow up to be a stand-up comedian, and I just had to settle instead for just being a laughable figure in esports. I've given the gift of laughter to millions of people, just not for the reasons I'd hoped. Anyway, Netflix have invested heavily in comedy, and to their credit as a company, they've really took a bunch of, diverse, I know that word's got a different connotation these days, but I'm meaning it in the real sense. Diverse, bunch of voices, a bunch of comedians, all across the political spectrum, all with different things to talk about. And naturally, this has caused a bunch of controversy. You know how it goes. All the shit libs in America say, you can't make jokes about that. And then Ricky Gervais goes on a fucking media tour saying, I don't give a fuck if you're offended. I don't give a fuck if you're offended. I don't give a fuck if you're offended. It would just be nice if you could tell me a joke that made me laugh, mate, but whatever. And then on the other side, all the fucking rightoids go, oh, have you seen this Amy Schumer special? A woman talking about her vagina. What if kids were to accidentally hear this? And then you have all that fucking drama, don't you? And obviously the chudosphere all make videos, Discourse around comedy, like everything else, has just got fucking polarized and is generally garbage. And people don't understand the craft, and they're not really in a place to kind of review it. We all remember I did a video, Twitter and the Tedious Take Machine, I think it was called, which was all about when Chris Rock was slapped by Will Smith at the Oscars in a happening that people were like, is it staged? Is it staged? What's going on? When they realized it wasn't staged, everybody suddenly made it political. Suddenly it was, all about these bigger things, these bigger ideas that are at work in our society and all of that stuff. And so I did a video. I went through all of Twitter and I took out everyone's fucking takes, and we looked at how grotesque it was. And it was 2 hours of fucking pain. It was 2 hours of, essentially just blue check insanity and blue check madness. So anyway, I was eagerly awaiting when Chris Rock was going to get back into comedy, because there's a cynical aspect to this. When Chris Rock was up there and he got slapped, it was obviously embarrassing for him, and he did get like a bit of victimhood style press, rightly so in my opinion. I think what Will Smith did is sort of an unforgivable sin, especially for somebody who, like, it's the one day a year you get to be lampooned in person by somebody else. Surely your ego's not that fragile. But anyway, they're Hollywood stars, so their ego is that fragile. Chris Rock went and did like a little bit of press tour, and I knew he was going to come back to comedy. Now, for those of you who don't know, Chris Rock has been out there. He's been acting, and with very mixed output, it's got to be said. Like, I'm not saying he can't act. I'm definitely not saying that. But I am saying some of the films he's been in, he's put out some pretty wooden performances, particularly in the field of drama. I'm just going to go into, like, just recently, for example, he was in Spiral from the Book of Saw, because the Saw movies must never be allowed to end. And it's like, that film fucking blows, and I can't tell if he's just like bad in it because the film blows, or he's bad in it because he's bad in it. And Amsterdam film. Yeah, we all remember him as Pookie, good role, right? But Amsterdam was another film. I didn't vibe with that. Didn't vibe with his performance. Kind of just a flat film, bit dull, just very average. I was super excited when he was in the season 4 of Fargo. I thought that was going to be absolutely amazing. And it was super weird. It must have been a director issue, because some episodes his performance was really, really good, and other episodes his performance was really, really flat. Didn't quite get to the same place as it had in other episodes. It was very strange. So I don't really think he's made a mark as an actor outside of the world of comedy. Of course, as a comedian and any character, like the voice acting he does in the Madagascar series, any sort of work like that, where it's essentially just a extension of his personality, a sort of caricature of who he is, that's always going to be great. And he was in the Dolomite movie as well. I thought that was good. I really liked that film. Always good to see Eddie Murphy back on form. But anyway, ultimately, he's been away doing this, and I'm sure it's been very lucrative for him, and he's made money. And at 58, after the slap, because of the cynical aspect of his first comedy special comeback is going to be all eyes on him, not just because he's one of the greatest comedians of all time, but because obviously, is he going to talk about the slap? Is he going to talk about the Will Smith stuff? Dogma, how can I forget about that? Yeah, all the comedy stuff's fire. But anyway, so he said he's going to come back, and he did. And they did this Netflix special. And so I watched it. It's called Selective, Outrage. I was like, yep, okay. This should be very much in his wheelhouse. Chris Rock has had some of the funniest comedy specials that have ever been filmed. He's now got this invective. He's got this, humiliating incident that we know he's going to talk about. Let's do it. Let's get into it. And unfortunately, right from the start, I knew it was going to be bad. I knew it wasn't going to be funny. I knew it was actually going to be a terrible sort of entry in his oeuvre. There's something about so right from the get-go, Chris Rock always has this staccato delivery where he's almost shouting the jokes at you throughout it. It's a delivery that always worked for him. He was an energetic, when he was an energetic, kind of angry young man talking about stuff in society and talking about, all these things that he was passionate about. And also, Chris Rock was a masterful comedian at sparring with the audience. So what he would do is he would pace back and forth, making eye contact with people, and he would be delivering jokes that primarily a lot of his material challenges like a preconception or an established narrative, something that we're very comfortable with in society. Think about the gun control, what we need is bullet control, conversation, and how that leads into a really funny punchline about, well, if somebody gets shot 10 times, he must have done something. Right? So, he's just a master at sort of being direct and borderline confrontational with his audience. But as a 58-year-old man, having the same delivery, the same pace back and forth, it just didn't have the same bite, and it didn't have the same energy, and it didn't have the same, kind of power or punch. Think about Dave Chappelle and how he used to deliver his comedy, and think about the older, wiser, chiseled Dave Chappelle now, a Dave Chappelle that's been through some shit, didn't break, comes back, and just holds court now. He just holds court. He just holds your attention. He's got this slow, deliberate delivery that just sucks you in. And he changed his style up. You have to, I think. I think not only just because of fashions and the way we sort of consume stand-up comedy can be different and our expectations are different, but also he's in a very different place in his life. And this is a controversial opinion. I think modern Chappelle is better than Chappelle Show Chappelle. I think he's on some other shit right now. I don't agree with the tenor of all of his comedy, but I think in terms of his delivery, the subjects he broaches, his absolute pathos, I think he's on some other shit. I think he's ascended from being like a stand-up comedian to almost like just some sort of like folk hero. He's on some other shit. And not everyone gets there. He's like on a George Carlin level of just whatever he has to say, you're going to listen. He's really up there. And so Chris Rock coming and doing this, and obviously I won't do Chris Rock's voice. That's probably that was something you could do in 2010. Doubt I can do it now. But he has the delivery that goes like this, and and that staccato delivery just right out the gate it just doesn't feel tonally appropriate for a 58-year-old dude. Anyway, material, ugh, God, nah, it wasn't it. And you could tell he'd just been out of it for a while. It's like one of the reasons a George Carlin special was straight fucking fire every time was George Carlin never stopped writing. And I don't mean writing comedy, I mean writing. He wrote books, he wrote poems, right? Like he wrote every single fucking day, and he recorded a fucking comedy special every year. Just went out there. Let's do a special. Have you got new material, George? Yeah, I got new material. And he came to these specials with new material. And his new material was because George Carlin never unplugged himself. George Carlin never went Hollywood. Even when he was in movies, it was like cameos in like super cool like indie films. You know, again, I think we've referenced Dogma. I think no, it's Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. When he literally just plays a guy hitchhiking a ride and giving roadhead to a trucker. George Carlin was so pessimistic in his old age about everything that had happened with the human race. He's doing stand-up specials called You Are All Diseased and They Are Sellouts. And he is talking about current events and he is talking about politics. And it's like, this is a guy that started out doing surrealist comedy about the difference between dogs and cats and the difference between football and baseball. He never unplugged. He had something to say about everything. And if you ever saw George Carlin when he used to go on these political talk shows like, Bill Maher or Hardline, or whenever he was brought in for a censorship issue like on CNN, he would run rings around the journalists. He'd run rings around the politicians. He was informed. He was erudite. He was educated. He was a god-tier human being, like simple as that. Never stopped writing. Always knew. And Chris Rock, he's been absorbed into that amorphous Hollywood lifestyle. The material he dropped in his special, fucking just so dated and so out of touch. There's a whole audience that could have discovered Chris Rock off the back of this special that won't even know who the bits he's doing, because the people involved in the bits have been fucking dead for years. Like, why are you doing Michael Jackson jokes in 2020? Right, we get it. What year did he die? Like, the jokes about Michael Jackson were played out when he was alive. You can't be doing Michael Jackson jokes in 2023. It's all been said. So this isn't listening to one of the greatest stand-ups all time. This is like listening to a dude down a bar who's just out of shit but thinks he's the funny one in the group, right? What other bit did he did? O.J. Simpson started talking about the Kardashians. Started talking about the Kardashians and the O.J. Simpson trial. The O.J. Simpson trial's even older than Michael Jackson. How are you bringing up O.J. still? Not new current stuff about how O.J.'s on Twitter, could have done a bit. They banned Trump, but they have O.J. on. You could have done something like that. You didn't do that. You talked about the O.J. trial. What's that, 92? Or 94 maybe, right? It's like he went through all of his old material that never made it, like his B-sides. That all the shit that never made it on stage back when he was a gigging stand-up comedian. And it's like he looked at it and he repurposed it for this show. Thought, I'll try out all of the things. And then the only bit, trust me, by now, I cannot tell you how hugely disappointed I was with the special. Like, I'm watching it and I'm like, it's sad. It's sad to see someone who was so cutting edge be so, out of touch. Yeah, it's always really jarring. But anyway, he gets to the end, and the only bit that was sort of funny was the line about fucking Will Smith and the slap. I've got it written down here, right? So he did a bit where he said, everyone's been cheated on, but how many people have then been interviewed on live TV by the person who cheated on him? I sucked someone else's dick. How's it make you feel? Right? Okay. I will admit I laughed at that. Did have a laugh. And then he goes on to talk about the slap. He said, everybody knows, yes, it happened. I got smacked like a year ago. I got smacked in the fucking Oscars by this motherfucker. People did it hurt? It still hurts. I got Summertime ringing in my ears, which of course is obviously the 1991 classic with DJ Jazzy Jeff that Will Smith released. So I laughed at that. And he said, I'm not a victim. You'll never see me on Oprah or Gayle King crying. Then he said, it's never going to happen. Fuck that shit. I took that hit like Pacquiao. Which, by the way, he did take the slap. I mean, Will Smith's a big motherfucker. Like, he did take the slap well. Like, fair play. Like, fair play. Then he talks about how he got cheated on. And because, like, his wife had slept with his son's friend, apparently. I didn't even know that detail of it, right? So, but that's what he said. I didn't even know that detail of it. I knew she cheated on Will Smith. I didn't know it was, like, with her son's friend, which sort of makes it really weird and fucking gross. Anyway, he said... Everyone in the world called him a bitch. Everybody. And who's he hit? Me, a gentleman he knows he could beat. That is some bitch-ass shit. So, again, like, rapturous applause. And it's like, okay, this probably should have been the shit you opened with. And then you probably should have wrote some material that was like 5 years old at least, like referencing things like you had just a wealth of material, by the way. Let's be absolutely clear. Since 2016, Donald Trump's been president. We had a huge fucking global pandemic where everybody fucking went into lockdown and you know, all sorts of crazy shit happened. We then elected a man with dementia into the fucking White House. We've nearly had 4 years of that, which has just flown by. There's so much material to mine right now. I think I could write a fucking comedy special, by the way, like based on all the mad shit. You don't even have to tell jokes. You just have to read off historic events. But anyway, it gets to the end, and he fucks up the joke. Oh, it's so bad. The last joke of the special, he fucks it up. He wanted to make a joke about the film Concussion, where Will Smith plays the doctor who discovered, like, CTE and the NFL's attempts to cover it up. And it's the last joke of the special. Instead of Concussion, he got it confused with the movie Emancipation, which, as the title suggests, it's not about getting hit in the head. It's about something far worse. It's about slavery. So he ended up saying, years ago, his wife said I should quit the Oscars. I shouldn't host because her man didn't get nominated for Emancipation, the biggest piece of shit ever. But then he corrected himself and said, no, not Emancipation. I fucked up the joke. She started this shit. She said that me, a fucking grown-ass man, should quit his job because my husband didn't get nominated for Concussion. And now Netflix have gone into the show as of today and they've edited it. They've edited it for him. They've tweaked it. It's not in there anymore. Only the people who watched in like the first 5 days will have actually seen the fuck up. And it's like, anyone can fuck up a joke, I guess, in the moment. But like, that's the type of shit you see at like open mic where someone completely flubs a punchline. You wouldn't expect a master comedian like Chris Rock to fuck up the last joke. And I like I cringed. Like I have a real problem with cringe. Like, I struggle with it. Like, it's the one type of content I can't watch. Like, where if something really cringeworthy is happening, I sort of have to turn it off. It gives me a very vivid psychological response. And I was like, I had to pause it. I had to actually pause it. I physically recoiled. I had to pause it and just take a beat because it was just too much. It was just too much to see that happen. And also as well, like, if you fuck up the joke, and people were laughing anyway because they weren't thinking, like, cause it's not even a great joke to begin with, we're being honest about it. You don't then say, I fucked up the joke, and then monologue about how you fucked up the joke. Just let it sit. They were applauding you anyway. So, unfortunately, the Chris Rock special was dreadful. It was like, it wasn't as bad as the Ricky Gervais one. Ricky Gervais and his fucking room full of gammons all just jeering. Tell him, Ricky. Tell him that Christians are stupid. Saying that. But that special was just garbage anyway. But I was expecting this, like, to just be something on, like, a fucking, you know, God tier level. Like, the idea of a, 58-year-old Chris Rock coming back from that public humiliation, got shit to say, been out there in Hollywood, got stories to tell, the world's insane. Chris Rock, always a man that could cut through the bullshit. Nah. And it just, it really, really disappointed. Now, the funny thing is, I was looking at reviews. One of the other things I do, like when I critique something in my mind, I go and look at other people's reviews, see where I'm at, see if I'm totally wrong. I've been wrong before with movies, you know, where it's like I've watched a movie and I've thought it's a piece of shit and I've just forgot about it, and it's been critically acclaimed, and I've created some narrative in my mind like, oh, but you're definitely right, fuck all the critics, you know how it is. And then I've gone back and watched the movie a few years later and gone, wow, you're a dickhead, that was actually a good movie. Most notably, that happened to me with with Drive. Drive was the one where I watched it with my girlfriend first time, and I was just like she hates like violence and stuff, and she even liked it more than me, and I was like, I thought that film was fucking trash, but then obviously you just realize, yeah, you got to take the L on that one. It is actually a really good film. So anyway, the reviews have generally been pretty insipid, but what's kind of interesting is, and I didn't think this would happen this time, but it did. It did that thing where critics are criticizing it in good faith, I would argue, this time, because he doesn't really stoke any of that, like, you know, outrage, even though it's called Selective Outrage. He doesn't really say anything. The reason it's called Selective Outrage is he's just talking about, like, the things people choose to get upset about and stuff. But when I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes, 81% audience score. 81%. And I'm like, what? For fucking OJ jokes and Michael Jackson jokes? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it weren't great. Some of the reviews, I mean, obviously, slow-hanging fruit to read audience reviews of Rotten Tomatoes. But let's just do that, because it will probably be funnier. It will probably be funnier than the special itself. Totally in tears. This is a 5-star review. Rock is so GD funny. GD standing for goddamn. It is about time comedians stop being afraid of being cancelled and go back to what they do best. Chris Rock is only saying what we're all thinking. 5 stars. Yeah, Chris Rock is saying Michael Jackson had inappropriate relationships with young boys, which has been said a million times. It's even been in, 3 documentaries now? Okay. This is a 5-star review. Might not be the most funny stand-up. 5 stars. Might not be the most funny, but I have given it the highest rating. Might not be the most funny, but it does deliver very good punchlines about things we don't dare to say in public. Yes, when indeed will we be allowed to talk about the O.J. Simpson trial? When? 5-star review. Brilliantly funny. It's from an account called Chris. Maybe it's Chris Rock. Brilliantly funny. Reinstated my faith in Netflix. Watched it twice so far and going to watch it again. There's a 5-star review. It just says hilarious and it's got 4 crying emojis. Five-star review. I am Team Chris Rock. I hope all good things for Chris and hope this special helps him heal. Brilliant 5-star review. Brilliant, funny, mentally mature audience, as in not by age, homeboy delivered. This one, 5-star review. LL Cool J. Don't call it a comeback. Mama said knock you out. 5-star review. I know that when critics pan a comedy special, it's because they're attempting to appease a very miserable, humorless audience, and therefore it must be hilarious. And that's exactly what Chris Rock's special was. Hilarious. If you enjoy laughter and joy, you'll love this. Is there anyone out there who doesn't love joy? Doesn't enjoy joy? The word joy is in enjoy. Do you enjoy joy? If you enjoy laughter and joy, you'll love this. You won't regret it. 5-star review from Ricky. The critics don't like it because Rock is making fun of them. Now, just to be clear, there was no jokes about comedy critics or movie critics or anything like that. But anyway, sick of all the nonsense that's rammed down your throat 24/7, Rock lambasts it while making you laugh your rear off. Excellent special, proving the man has still got it. 5-star review. The performance is just that little bit sweeter with the outrage of the critics. Now, again, the critics... I'll read you some of the critics' quotes after this. And nobody is critiquing it based on the things he said. Like, no one is saying Chris Rock's jokes were super offensive, like they did with, like, Dave Chappelle or anything like that. It's far too tired for that. They're all just saying it's like, you know. But anyway, the outrage of the critics. Watch it, form your own opinion. In my honest opinion, comedy is still alive while it is allowed to question and shock the mainstream media narrative. Chris, you rock. 5-star review. It's about time Chris Rock cleared the air. While we all knew it was coming, I love that he waited until the set was almost over to set things right. Oh yeah, and Will Smith, go suck an egg, buddy. Not all 5-star reviews. A couple of 1 stars that I saw. This one's a 1-star review. I wanted to laugh. I waited to laugh. I didn't laugh. I used to think Chris Rock was the kind of guy I want to hang out with and have a beer with. Turns out he's kind of a douchebag. 1-star review. Because you didn't fulfill this individual's parasocial dreams. Seems reasonable. Now, I'll read you some of the critic reviews. USA Today gave it 30 out of 100. And they said, this was Kelly Lawler of USA Today, a flimsy, flaccid special that gained nothing from being live other than providing publicity for Netflix with his long-awaited comments about Will Smith slapping him at last year's Oscars. Rock did not get into his rhythm until the show was practically over, when he began a blazing rant about Smith and adamantly denied being a victim. But then he sure reached for sympathy like one. There you go. Dan Feinberg of The Hollywood Reporter said, there is nothing in Selective Outrage that raised my hackles. I didn't even get a semi-hackle. My hackles were flaccid. This was live, but it felt canned. Vulture Catherine Van Arendonk said, the biggest failure of this 40 out of 100, the biggest failure of Selective Outrage is not Rock himself, but everything around him. The direction, the staging, the abysmal pre- and post shows, the special's final 10 minutes in which Rock finally takes on Will Smith in the Oscars are the strongest part of the show. In fact, the special improves steadily from about the halfway point. The whole thing almost writes itself, and then that sloppy, excruciating post-show kicks in. I didn't even watch that. I tapped out after the fucking joke bombed, after his last joke. The New Yorker, 40 out of 100. Rock's signature delivery became a lifeline, elevating the only mildly amusing and sustaining the breath in even the drabbest material. None of the jokes will rise to the level of iconic or even memorable. And by the way, that is so accurate because I had to look at notes to read off the fucking material to talk about it now on stream. I'm afraid his delivery works when nothing else does, and in Selective Outrage, little did. See, forgot about this bit. Yeah, he did do this. Here you go. Says, seeing Rock open his performance with jokes about woke traps and Elon Musk's sperm count and O.J. Simpson in 2023 left me feeling weary for what was to come. Much like he did in Tambourine, Rock shifts his focus in the second half of his special from observations about the world to look inward at himself and how he's reacting to the world now that he's single again in his 50s. Yeah, I forgot about the Elon Musk stuff, and certainly this was worse than Tambourine. There was a joke where he said something like, you know, because he's the richest man in the world, he can get a blowjob anytime he wants, and he has to produce sperm in advance because his sperm is already pre-swallowed by all the future blowjobs he's going to get. That's the premise of that bit, essentially. I was like, sad. Big sad. So, yeah, it wasn't great, guys. I wanted to, look, like I said, I love Chris Rock. I think he's again, he should be, if you love comedy, he should be anyone's comedy hero, like in your comedy heroes. He's up there, Mount Rushmore level comedian, But unfortunately, there's this weird thing where it's like, if you look at the comedians that you loved from that era, I don't know if it was because a lot of them stopped like doing colleges because they were worried about that. Like Seinfeld famously said, there's no point in doing colleges no more because, you end up fucking having to just do a public apology if a joke's offensive and stuff like that. But a lot of those comedians from that era that kind of stopped doing that and only do specials. A lot of them are falling off. Like Louis C.K., I haven't seen his most recent special. I'm signed up to his fucking website, and they emailed me about it and said you can buy a ticket and watch it, but you can't own it and you can't download it, right? And they used to sell it to you, and now it's like you can pay the same amount to just watch it one time, for 48 hours or whatever. So I didn't pick it up. The last Louis C.K. special I watched, the one before his most recent one, was really bad by his high standards. Louis C.K.'s again recorded some great specials, has some great material. I think opening up with like a 15-minute experimental meditation where you're making a joke about abortion being, baby murder. But it isn't, but maybe, but then it is, and I like it, and I do like killing babies as well. Or, no, I don't really, but yeah, I do, yeah, but also... Just doing that for 15 minutes, it was excruciating. And clearly it wasn't particularly well worked out. Like, it wasn't well honed and well crafted material, which, again, the greats would never record a special where they were, like, experimenting. You know what I mean? Like, it's all there. It's all ready to go. You're getting the best. When you put out a taping, the taping is traditionally the best one on the tour, and you use other dates when you're not recording and maybe fudge out certain bits and certain delivery. But, yeah, I just thought, like, a lot of them have fallen off. The only one who sort of, from that era of, like, the great edgelord uprising of comedy and kind of being here now, is Bill Burr. Bill Burr's material's still fucking fire. I know everyone says he's like some woke bitch right now or whatever, but Bill Burr's just fucking killing it. Dave Chappelle's still killing it. But other than that, it's really struggling. I wish Patrice had lived. Who knows what that crazy motherfucker would be saying right now. Like, the state of comedy right now, it actually makes me miss him more than, like, ever before. I would have loved to hear Patrice O'Neill material on the Oscars and the slap incident. Like, it happened to Chris Rock. Patrice would write you 100 better jokes just from watching it. I miss that motherfucker more than ever before. And Stanhope's, like, Doug Stanhope, he admits it though, so I always give him a pass. He's washed, he's out of shit. I watched Beer Hall Putsch, I watched Stanhope was another guy, love that dude, but time can take the fire out the belly. Norm Macdonald's special, obviously, Like, it's just Norm, isn't it? Norm's the type of comedian where it's like, because of his delivery and his demeanor are also inextricably just him. Like, it's just, you don't even know when he's doing a bit or telling a joke half the time. Norm Macdonald was borderline performance art. Like, he was like on some Kaufman shit, I think. So, sad. There's a few comedians that are still flying the flag of doing truly great comedy. And, all these people who say, you can't even tell these edgy jokes these days. It's like, it's definitely not true. I mean, Dave Chappelle dedicated 3 specials to the trans issue in America. You know what I mean? It's like, you definitely can tell, and made 100 million for doing it. You definitely can tell those jokes, I think. I think that's proof of it. So, it's just people aren't writing funny jokes anymore. People lost practice.